By popular request, it's here. The American History Iceberg. Buckle your heckles, kiddos. Now, this iceberg's gonna work a little bit differently than other icebergs do because it's OC. I made this. Each tier on the iceberg represents a century. So we will be doing this with commonly known things and more obscure things from each century in North American history. The 21st century. You know, this one. This guy. This guy. He is unfortunately very, very well known. 9/11, aka the terrorist attack on the Twin Towers, a tragedy that's death toll continues to be outshined by COVID every day. This is the first of 3 spelling errors I've made. I hate myself. Anyways, insider trading in government. Basically, a lot of senators, long-term senators, are very, very rich. More rich than they should be. This is because they buy the right stocks and then know when to sell them because, well, it's a government. Little bit of a tinfoil condom idea, but also, you know, it fits the American government. In an attempt to forever destroy any credibility, I have another spelling error. I would have fixed these, but I didn't notice these until post. Anyways, anti-truth sentiment. This is something that, albeit might not be very new in America, but it is very relevant for things like anti-vax, election fraud claims, evangelicals, basically anything that you look at that makes you horrifically depressed. KKK is still active. This one might seem like the most tinfoil condom, hat, gloves, shoes, butt plug of all, but there's no tinfoil here. This one is actually true, and I can attest to it personally. When I was younger, I lived in Illinois, and the KKK was very active there. As for everywhere, I can't entirely say that it's in the West Coast. The West Coast is very, very non-racist. But in the Deep South and the Midwest, the white people ain't got nothing better to do. It's still up there, which is sad because a lot of people think that the KKK was just magically eradicated the instant Martin Luther King popped out of the womb, the same way that a lot of people think the civil rights was a long time ago when the KKK was still tormenting those sorry people, like 60 years ago now. The 1900s. Civil rights movements. Now I've put movements as plural because I'm including the African Americans' fight for equality, tying in with how Martin Luther King popped out of the womb and suddenly everyone thinks racism is eradicated. Women's rights to vote and have equal pay, something that we have achieved, but radical feminists, according to Mr. Shapiro, want more of. And, of course, how could I ever forget about the prohibition and anti-prohibition fights? Vietnam and Korean Wars. You thought America getting its ass handed to it in Vietnam was bad? Well, you don't know about its little brother Korea. Yes, when Korea split into North and South, there was a war as America desperately tried to stop the domino effect. Basically, these were pointless wars fought against fears against communism, because they didn't want any communists in America, they being the government, so the government sent thousands of young men to get killed in the jungles and landscapes of these Asian countries. Very, very pointless, unless you're part of the military-industrial complex which profited billions from people dying. Yeehaw, God bless America. Reagan's reason for the war on drugs. Now, Ronald Reagan did not start the war. Richard Nixon did. Richard Nixon's reasons extended to, well, imprisoning black people and protesters, supposedly. Reagan's reasons were inspired by a basketball star overdosing. Now, the war on drugs caused a disproportionate rate of imprisonment for people of color versus white people because pot has always been legal if you're white, unless you're poor, in which case the cops hate you too. And overall, Reagan was just a less corrupt mini Nixon, and should I be sent to hell, he is on my hit list. But hey, who can be angry about the war on drugs when you got such cinematic masterpieces like the This Is Your Brain campaign? I mean, what tells me not to use drugs more than cooked eggs, a beloved breakfast item? No fucking shit, I want my brain to be good. You think that commercial is gonna convince me not to snort cocaine? Manhattan testing. Now, the Manhattan Project was a race to develop the first nuclear weapon during World War II. However, after that, and we realized that the atmosphere wouldn't literally evaporate if we dropped a nuke, America decided that it was just gonna fucking nuke its own territory. So it nuked the American Southwest. And Bikini Bottom, a real place. America stole the West. Now, the Midwest, despite being just the middle of the country, used to be the West. However, the northern half of Mexico, now the American West, was simply vibing, and America did not like that, so they walked up to Mexico, bitch-slapped Mexico's balls and tits and said, "Give me that shit, bitch, right fucking now." And I mean, what was Mexico gonna do? Win a war against America? Civil War. Now, I don't know what fucking loser who can't spell made this iceberg chart. I did. But the Civil War was an event in which the South said, "Oh no, I can't keep humans as property because Lincoln won the election. I'ma head out." And then we proceeded to slaughter each other wholesale in numbers completely unseen beforehand in war, only bested by World War I and II. Biological warfare and being cucked by British people simply wasn't enough for Americans to do to the Native Americans, so we decided to genocide them with things like the Trail of Tears. Wow, I'm so proud of my nation's history. 18th century. Nothing happened here except wars. The Revolutionary War, aka people got really tired of just kind of being thrown in jail and then sent to Britain for no reason. British soldiers in their homes, and I guess they just really fucking hated tea. But you know what this is, because Americans won't shut the fuck up about it. Bacon's Rebellion. Now, this isn't very well known, because America doesn't want to look bad in front of all of its cooler friends, but the Constitution was not the original basis for the government. You see, the Articles of Confederation were. And the Articles of Confederation were weak as fuck and allowed merchants to exploit the ever-loving hell out of civilians. Paired with the fact that the US government couldn't afford to pay its soldiers who had to stop working to fight in the war, so now you have a bunch of combat vets who were losing their homes after fighting for you, and they're gonna get mad. Nathaniel Bacon was, well, the angriest, and he tried to organize something in which they held the courts at gunpoint and said, "We're not paying your shit, you didn't pay us." It of course failed, but Bacon's Rebellion is what led to the Constitution being made, along with a few other things. First submarine used for war. Yes, you heard that right. The first war submarine was made by the Americans. It was called the Turtle, and it was basically a noodle with a smaller noodle that had a bomb attached to it to stick onto fucking boats so that they could explode. It wasn't entirely successful, but hey, American ingenuity, killing your guys to blow up British boats. French-Indian War. Now, this was the war that happened in America right before the Revolutionary War. This war, unfortunately, did not feature any submarines, but that's okay. And it was basically just the Native Americans telling British settlers, "Hey, no more going west, guys, knock it off, please." And then the French were like, "Yeah, we're gonna pay for the Native Americans to have guns." And then Britain was like, no. And then there was a war, because France and Britain are always fighting each other like the turbo versions they are. Well, were. They don't fight each other anymore, which is pretty cool. Witches? Salem witch trials, a horrifying realization that Puritans aren't so pure and that people can die if you take preachers at their word a little bit too much. Unless you read The Crucible, in which case it's a steamy story about how Puritans weren't too pure, and you can die if you don't keep fucking that teenager. Now, if you're cool, you'll know that even old New York was once New Amsterdam, and why they changed it we can't say. They must have liked it better that way. But references aside, New York was in fact stolen by the British. Britain is kind of the crazy mom that America inherited all of her issues from, so this kind of fits 17th century Britain. Popham Colony, Roanoke's less known, not as cool little brother. Now, Popham Colony came after Roanoke, however, the people faced issues there like rivers freezing over, unable to establish trade with the natives, so they just built a 300-ton ship and said, "Aight, I'ma head out," and then sailed back to England. And it was abandoned for quite some time, until it was dug up. English colonists weren't the first Europeans to settle. Spain was much more set, but the knowledge of what happened in Florida is forbidden.
The knowledge of what happened in Florida is forbidden. The knowledge of what happened in Florida is forbidden.
Vespucci discovers America. Yes, you heard that right. Vespucci discovers America. Amerigo Vespucci was an explorer who beat Columbus here. That's because Columbus is a lying-ass bitch who never actually discovered America. He landed on some islands in the Caribbean. Now, the voyage could have been in the 15th century, however, its impact was not felt till the 16th century, which is why I've included it here. Roanoke Incident. The Roanoke colony was one of the first settlements in the New World by the British. However, the 115 men, women, and children were all abandoned, and the people there mysteriously vanished. Everyone gave their opinions on it, whether it was aliens or their daddy issues that caused all the people to vanish. However, last year some stuff came out that suggested that a much more reasonable thing happened, which is everyone in the Roanoke colony left Roanoke and assimilated with the natives. Fur trade begins. Now, as with every new thing that we discover, the first people there are always the ones who are planning to shamelessly profit off of it. And this was also the 16th century. Furs might have been practical if it was like a goat or some shit, but if you've got some stuff from a brand new world, holy cow, you're rich. Which is where the fur trade just took advantage of rich people wanting extravagant things. And it was one of the first industries in the New World. Athapaskans migrate from Canada. The Athapaskans were a group of indigenous peoples from part of Canada that migrated a few times throughout history. However, the last push was in the 16th century, the earlier parts of it. These are the people who were the forefathers and mothers of nations such as the Navajo and the Cherokee. However, because of, genocide, this one's really a pain in the ass to research. Thank you, JSTOR, for tangential stuff on it. I am running out of words to say. Moundville is abandoned. Now, Moundville is this settlement in Alabama. I don't know what idiot archaeologist gave it the name Moundville, but it was a massive town, if not city, so big that it was described as the Big Apple of the Native American world. However, by the 15th century, almost no one was living there and everyone had moved other places, so it was abandoned. God, Moundville, that's such a stupid fucking name. The Kachina Cult. The Kachina Cult refers to an indigenous people's religion that exploded throughout the Southwest in the early 14th to late 15th centuries. I really don't like the description cult because that is a super patronizing word that delegitimizes a cultural practice, and I really wish that more was known about this. People still can practice a Kachina cult, and they still do through heritage. However, a shit ton of information was lost about the Kachina religion because, we killed them all. Woohoo! New Mexico adobes. People just woke up and thought living in a canyon would be pretty cool. Pray to whatever power you believe in. You are in my domain. The Vikings beat everyone here. Yeah, you heard that right. They beat all the Europeans by like 500 years, but still got cucked by the natives. The spelling errors are intentional and all define secret history. Every America is personalized. You know I had to do it to him. So, I've done it. We've made it through. Thank you all so much for watching. This is OC. I made this iceberg chart. I will be updating it and then posting it on Reddit along with an explanation video. Yeehaw. If you made it this far, I would like to kindly inquire that you subscribe. Every subscriber is one number closer to my dream. And, you know, I'm okay. I'm an okay person. Anyways, thank you so much for watching. Have a wonderful time. Memento Mori.